Apple is expected to unveil iOS 27 at WWDC on June 8th, with a public release likely in September. And this year's update is shaping up to be one of the most significant in recent memory, largely because of the long-awaited overhaul to Siri. So here's a rundown of everything that we know so far. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we are expecting to see iOS 27 along with every other OS platform, so iPadOS 27, macOS 27, etc., at WWDC, which was just recently announced by Apple, and it's expected to take place on June 8th. And in that announcement, Apple specifically mentioned there would be a showcase of the new AI advancements. So it's safe to say this is going to be a pretty huge event, and the rumored biggest change coming in iOS 27 is a completely reworked version of Siri. Stop me if you've heard that before. Now, Apple is turning its personal assistant into a full chatbot, similar to ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. The project is reportedly codenamed Campos internally. Now, according to Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, the new Siri would be able to search the web, generate images, help with coding, summarize information, and analyze uploaded files. It will support both text and voice-based conversations, and Apple is testing a standalone Siri app with a list of past conversations, the ability to favorite and search through chats, and options to start new conversations. Now, Apple plans to power the chatbot with a custom model built in collaboration with Google's Gemini team. So, Gurman has reported that this custom model is comparable to Gemini 3 and is more powerful than models that Apple has developed on its own. Apple and Google are also reportedly discussing running the Siri chatbot on Google's servers using tensor processing units, likely because Apple doesn't have the infrastructure to handle chatbot queries at that scale of its user base. Now, there were a lot of other Apple Intelligence Siri features that were originally promised back at WWDC 2024 with iOS 18, but have been repeatedly delayed, and it was supposed to be right around this time this year, and that has also been delayed. But as long as Apple launches them before December 2026, it should technically be on track with what was promised recently. Beyond the chatbot functionality, Siri is supposed to be gaining these new capabilities. The updated version will reportedly be able to handle multiple commands in a single query. For example, a user could ask Siri to get directions to a location and then send those directions to a contact in messages, and Siri would carry out both steps. This is something that other OEMs have actually already been able to implement in its own devices. Currently, Siri is limited to handling one command at a time, and it can barely do that sometimes. It can answer follow-up questions without needing to be reactivated, but each request still needs to be issued separately. Siri will also gain personal context, meaning it will be able to use data on your device to answer questions. It should be able to understand what's on the user's screen and be able to take action based on that context. Apple's also adding a system-wide Ask Siri button in its apps and a Write with Siri button above the keyboard. The interface itself is also getting a redesign that may even involve the dynamic island. Apple currently has a partnership with OpenAI that lets Siri hand off questions to ChatGPT. But in iOS 27, that integration is now going to be expanding. Apple will allow third-party chatbots from companies like Google and Anthropic to connect with Siri through a new extensions feature. If a user has the Claude or Gemini app installed, they'll be able to send questions from Siri directly to those chatbots. Users will then manage this through a new extensions option in the Siri and Apple Intelligence section of the Settings app. Gurman has also reported that the App Store will have a dedicated extensions section, functioning as a marketplace for third-party AI integrations. I basically think of this like the Safari extensions section in the App Store, so like that, but for third-party AI integrations. Apple's also working on a new feature for the Shortcuts app that will let users generate custom actions using Apple Intelligence. So rather than manually building out a workflow step by step, users will be able to describe what they want in natural language, and then the AI will be able to create the action for them. This feature was originally planned for an earlier release, but it was also delayed. Back-end code discovered by developer Nicholas Alvarez and confirmed by MacRumors here indicates that it is now expected to arrive as part of iOS 27. iOS 27 is also expected to include interface changes designed for the rumored foldable iPhone. Reports suggest that the foldable device will have a 5.5-inch display when closed and a 7.8-inch display when opened. And iOS 27 will include new layouts and experiences built for that larger screen. Now, beyond Siri and foldable updates and new features, more importantly, Apple is reportedly focusing the rest of iOS 27 on bug fixes and performance improvements. Apple, again, is expected to be previewing iOS 27 and the rest of its new updates to the platforms at WWDC keynote on June 8th, with the first developer beta available shortly after that keynote ends. A public release is anticipated in September, like I mentioned earlier, And we'll have full coverage of everything that Apple announces, so be sure to subscribe to MacRumors here on YouTube. Go to the website, stay locked in there, and we'll have all the updates from you. But I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. What do you think about these new AI features and the new Siri chatbot and all of that? Let me know in those comments down below. This has been Dan with MacRumors. Thanks so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you around in the next video.